teachers, I hope all is well. By now, you know that every 2 weeks or so, we switch our instructional focus so that that's our focus during our planning PLCs. And so this week, our focus is going to be on vocabulary instruction. And so as you approach your EOCs, as you approach your NCFEs, it's going to be important that you know that students are retaining the information, not only retaining the information, but being able to process the information and implement it through their own thought processes. And so as we think about vocabulary instruction for the next couple of weeks, there's just 3 steps that I want to kind of emphasize to you as you focus on vocabulary. Hopefully the focus has been on vocabulary all along. Some of you may give a weekly vocabulary quiz. Some of you may have a weekly word of the week, or you may do like a word of the day. I've seen all of this in your classes. And so I know you're already doing this, but right now we just kind of want to hone in on it and really kind of fine tune it and focus on it a little bit as we gear up for end of semester testing. The first thing you want to do as you're giving vocabulary instruction or as you're emphasizing vocabulary in your lessons is repetition. Make sure that the students are hearing the words over and over again, and not only hearing the words, but also making sure that they're hearing the words in different connotations. And so speaking of different connotations, make sure that you're not just repeating the word just to say I said it 10 times, but make sure like that usage is like meaningful usage, which allows the kids to process it in multiple ways. So make sure that there's some level of differentiation, as we've talked about in the past couple of weeks, of the use of that vocabulary word. So as students hear this word, it forces them to kind of think about that word and forces them to maybe ask questions about the different meanings of that word. And so after we have repeated that word several times and we've actually used it from a meaningful perspective in our lectures, in our mini lectures, in our breakout sessions, in our small group, then we want to make sure that we integrate that word. So what that means is as we're using those key words, we don't want to just use it for that one day and then we never use it again. We want to integrate that word into our practice, integrate that word into our economy of language as we are instructing our students. So for example, I want to give you an example. When I was teaching civics and economics, whenever we would get to the government, I think it was unit 2 or goal 2, whenever we would get to the different government types, the students had a hard time like differentiating like which type of government meant what. So for example, we talked about a theocracy, we talked about a democracy, and we talked about an autocracy. And so when I remember when I was teaching those students like what those words meant, I had them to think about the word theocracy, and I was like, how can you remember like what theocracy means? And so I began to break that word down and talk to them about, had they ever heard of like theology, or had they ever heard of like a theologian? And so they knew that was like related to religion. And so through that breakdown and desegregation of the prefix of that word, they realized that ocracy, we're talking about government types. So theocracy, now it means that some type of government that has to do with some type of religion. And so they were able to make that connotation that that's a government type that really revolves around like religious law. And so when we got to autocracy, I started thinking about like, guys, have you ever heard of the word like automatic? Like a car, if a car is automatic, that means if you put it in one gear, that means that car will go as long as there's gas in that car. So think about what that means, like autocracy. That means one, and that means government. So we were able to draw that connection there, and autocracy means it is ruled by one leader. And so you get my drift. So as you're focusing on your vocabulary integration, as you're focusing on your vocabulary in general, don't be afraid to disaggregate. Don't be afraid to break that word down so that the students can get a clear meaning of it. And of course, the end goal is to make that word stick, to give the kids some type of like knowledge and some type of like referencing or some type of cross-referencing to make sure that with or without you, they can remember what that word means and they can make that word stick. And so again, this week on Thursday in your planning PLCs, really focus on your vocabulary instruction. Remember those 3 steps, of vocabulary instruction: repetition, meaningful use, and integration. Okay, if I can be of any support to you from an instructional standpoint this week, as you guys enter into your instructional PLCs on Thursday or Tuesday, depending upon your cycle, please let me know. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful day.